Hi, thanks.
Hi, James. How are you?
Really good.
Okay. Andrew, there's a bit of noise coming. It might be from your piece. Yeah, better. Thank you. Hey, Steve. How you feeling?
I'm back, man. I'm on the mend.
You're alive?
I'm alive. Still here. Shut up. How you doing?
Good, good. Got James B on the call and the Polar team.
Hey, guys. Hey, James.
So while we wait for the others, I mean, it's an interesting time. So all the ad platforms are having their earnings.
Yeah.
Snap did their stock did well on the basis of their users not shrinking, which was a little comical. Google's stock went down, although they're still growing revenue about 23%. The digital market's growing 15%, so they're ahead of the market. And then Facebook was pretty unbelievable last week, growth rate of 30%, so 2x the market rate.
Yep. As a Facebook shareholder, I was happy last week. I thought for sure they would get knocked on, even if the earnings were great and the user growth was great. I thought like some comment, like they've been under fire recently. But yeah, that was a 10 out of 10. That's about as good as you can be under that amount of scrutiny.
Yeah, yeah.
Like now.
Hey, Justin, how are you?
But I just sent the board members a note. I'll have to be spare with my comments. I'm going to sit at the airport next to a gate.
Okay.
I answered your questions via email.
Oh, you did? Okay. Okay, we're just waiting on James. We're just waiting on James Lombardi, but let's get started. The call is being recorded. It's going to be shared with the rest of the wider leadership team. In terms of the Polar team, you have Carlo, Laurie, Andrew, and myself. And this is essentially the Polar executive team, and the leadership team we'll talk a little bit about in the slides is a slightly bigger group. Okay, let's just take as usual. Let's take a moment to check in, to ground ourselves, and be present for the time we're going to have together. So I'll lead us through just a short mindful moment. So just sit comfortably and start to relax into your body. Feel free to bring your eyes to a close. As you just start to breathe and check in with yourself, with your thoughts, with your body, letting anything from the previous moments start to settle and fade away as you become present in this moment. Breathe in a little more deeply. Start to let some light back in as you open your eyes and come back to the group.
Hey everyone, we got James here. How you doing?
Great. Okay, we have everyone here. Thanks for sharing the mindful moment. Just as an anecdote, it's starting to become part of Polar's brand now. It's exciting being in the digital advertising industry, and instead of taking clients out for drinks, we take them to meditate, and we're being known for that. Lori will chat about it, but last week, Gannett, our largest partner, invited us in to talk to their entire branded content team, a pretty large group, and we started with a little mindful moment, and they really appreciate our presence with them. So it's been a big part of our culture and our brand now. So thank you all for encouraging and supporting that. So to start off today's session, we'll start off with something a little different. We'll call it Like, Wish, Wonder. Carla, Lori, and I have been doing this at the start of pretty much every one of our meetings, and I think it's a great way for a group to come together, to feel comfortable, and to share openly, to grease the wheels for the conversation. So I'll start it off, and then I'll invite all the board members to share. The way it works is you're sharing essentially like a headline, so it's very, very short, meant to be like shorter than even a tweet, but one sentence of something you like, something you wish, something you wonder. So I'll share. So I like that Carlo and Lori have really stepped up into the bigger responsibilities that I've asked them to take on to run the business operationally, and that has really shown in the last month since starting off the new year, and they really have taken more control and a lot more decisions and a lot more authority with the business. I wish that we did not have reporting issues with some of our clients that's causing some friction and challenging the confidence for some of our team and some of our clients. And then I wonder what our culture will feel like once we have 10 new people with us in different offices around the world. Okay. So I'll open it up to the board members. Who would like to go? Keep it short, please.
I'll raise my hand.
That'll be great. Oh.
Go ahead, James. James won first.
Are you sure? So I like the way you run board meetings, Kunal. It's unique, frankly. But I think we can all learn something from other boards we may sit on from the way that you run them. Not only the Like, Wish, Wonder and meditation, but more broadly, I'm impressed by the way the board packs are on time. They're always tight, neat, together, and you lead the calls, I think, in a useful and interesting way. So I like that. I wish the sector was slightly more in favor with investors than it seems to be right now, but hopefully that's a cyclical thing rather than a structural thing, and that'll come back as we start to execute and deliver. And I wonder how big we can make this business. That's all.
Thank you, James. Next.
Yeah, I'll go, Janelle. It's James. James too. So I like the incredible persistence and adaptability I see in this team. It's pretty amazing. I wish, I wish that we had the opportunity to settle in and really commit to a strategy that we knew was defensible for a sustained period of time. and I like, boy. Now, I guess I wonder if this is the opportunity or time where we can actually do that.
Okay. Thank you, James. Steve?
So I like the revenue momentum, that we got revenue momentum again. I wish the market would stabilize a little faster than it is right now. I still find it's difficult to pin kind of where things are going and how long particular trends will last, which I think it's tough to build a business on a shaky market foundation. And I guess I wonder what bold looks like in the context of this new market reality in 2019 for Polar.
Thank you, Steve. Justin, would you like to share yours, or would you like me to read it?
If you could read it, that'd be great.
Sure. So from Justin's comments, I like that the company is aggressively pursuing the exploitation of the strategic shift in the market vis-a-vis Google, Facebook, and premium publishers, and that the management team has stepped up. I wish the company had more resources to put behind it. I wonder if we will be able to exploit it fast enough to create big value, or if we should look for strategic partners to go bigger faster. Thank you, Justin. Okay, so let's get into it. In terms of the flow for today, we'll spend maybe about 20-25 minutes on operations, and this is going to be led by Andrew, Carlo, and Lori, who will share and get everybody just foundation knowledge of what's going on in the business. And then I'll lead the product vision section, and would like to spend the meat of today's discussion there. This is pretty exciting developments and kind of big business model decisions that I'd like help thinking through. Okay. So fiscal 2018, Andrew?
Yeah, so as you had mentioned, others have mentioned before in the Wonder Lake and what was the other thing, Wish section, the revenue is generating some good momentum. Full year revenue for 2018 is up about 18% over 2017. And more importantly, Q4 is up about 28% when compared against Q4 of 2017. So very good momentum there. On a profit side, this is the first year I think I've ever seen a profit and a full year from Polar, which is great. I know it's still accounting EBITDA, which is has a few non-cash items in there, like the shred, which we'll hopefully get in Q1 of 2019. But for the most part, we're plowing back in to invest for growth, everything that we're making, which is great. Cash has been stable. It's been hovering around 2 million, 2.2 million for the better part of 2 years, really, which is great. So again, further testament to just being able to monitor our cash and keep our investments in check. So that's the high level. I did send around the more detailed pack, financial details. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that, but you know, certainly these are the highlights from my perspective.
Any questions on 2018 from the group? Okay. I'll just add on. I mean, Q4 we expected to burn, you know, I think 150K, and it ended up being a profitable quarter. Like our target was 1.8 million. So we ended up significantly surpassing our revenue target, and then hiring wasn't as fast as we expected it to be. So the intention was not to be profitable, but you know, we'll talk about 2019, and our intention is just to start burning again. Okay, let's
get a record quarter tonight.
Yeah, that was a record quarter. So Q3 was 1.7 million, which was a record quarter, and then Q4 1.94. And we'll get to it, but Q1 our internal target is 2 million.
Yeah. Did you have a good holiday party for the team? A lot of hard work, a lot of success. It's good to celebrate success when you see it.
Yeah, we had a great holiday party. It was really fun.
Yeah, we had two. We had. I mean, New York, our team is 12 people, and you know, when I moved here a year ago, it was 2 people. So the culture now exists in New York, and then in Toronto, we moved into a new office as well. So I think those things, probably more than even the financial results, change the energy.
Yeah. For sure. Good.
Okay, in terms of operations, high level 2019. These are the KPIs we've put in front of the organization. So getting to 1 billion ads a month on our ad solutions. December was 72 million, so that's about a 12x increase. 100 million ads a month, within the next, quarter or two across TDA, which is really the agency side or the scaled publisher vision, and starting to prove that. And then getting to 2.5 million a quarter, that's off of which the forecast is built. Our stretch target is getting to 3 million a quarter by Q4 this year. All right, so 2.5 million a quarter, that would be 25% growth. 3 million a quarter would be 50% growth. So that's the range in which we're targeting for 2019. Let's get into, so we think of the organization as go-to-market and product. Go-to-market, Laurie, product, Carlo. So let Laurie talk through go-to-market.
Yep, so a couple of different topics to share. From a rate card perspective, we've thus far been working with our partners on a straight CPM model. What we're going forward to market now, and where we've seen some success in a couple of different regions, is exploring more of a sliding CPM or revenue share on that CPM. So if our partners are going to market at a $10 CPM, negotiating that 12% of that is ours, and should they fluctuate on that rate, our share would fluctuate accordingly. So we're having some good success there, specifically in EMEA. Kunal's successfully signed some deals under that framework, and we've been floating it in other markets as well. In terms of partner health overall, so we've now got about 87 pubs signed onto Social Display. About half of that are live partners, meaning they've run a campaign, and then a smaller portion are active, meaning they've got about 5 active campaigns. So we're still struggling to crack the code in terms of how to more quickly scale those partners. There are differences regionally, which are interesting. I think in the US, we see less standalone sales, meaning that people are including Social Display as part of more of a 360 package, where in other regions, they're more out of the gate as kind of a standalone workhorse solution. So we're exploring that. The goal moving forward is really scale and volume. So we're looking at our partners in one of 2 tiers. Tier 1 is the traditional HVP approach we've taken with strong services and a lot of investment, focusing on the partners listed here as both priority partners, meaning there's already existing volume and interest, and they're in market heavily and strategically, as well as growth partners where we see more opportunity and we think we can get them there. So that partner set is where we're going to be investing a lot of our strategic time with data and insights to support a better way and a stronger way for them to get in market faster. And then on the tier 2 level, those partners are really vendors. So they're vendor relationships where it's a little more turnkey. We're doing less of a services investment with them, and they're kind of rolling along with an expectation that they're supported in a more typical vendor approach. In terms of HVPs overall, so Gannett remains our priority partner, and we've seen significant growth from them year over year when we look at 2018 versus 2017, which is really exciting. We had a challenging relationship with them 3 years ago, I would say, and to be where we are now is super satisfying. So we've more than doubled our revenue. We've spent a lot of time with them this quarter already. We were invited to speak at their all-hands meeting last week, I believe it was, and Kunal mentioned that we had a mindful moment with them, which they really appreciated. But we did a full fireside chat where their team really asked us a lot of questions around strategy and insight and positioning, and they were coming to us to ask what is our unique value proposition in the market, meaning from our point of view, what does Gannett have that other publishers don't, which was really interesting, and it was nice to see how much they lean on us and consider us a partner in the same way we do them. We have identified a couple of additional opportunities for more revenue growth with them that we feel excited about, and hopefully we'll be able to execute on in the next probably 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll see more growth from them as well.
I'll just add on Gannett. I mean, in 2019, I think we should do 1.2 to 1.5 million. So the revenue growth is going to continue. In the market, Gannett had a hostile bid takeover last week, 2 weeks ago, which they rejected this week, which is very good for us. And then our key stakeholder, since the time that we signed with them 3 years ago to now, is now president of the business. So our champions keep getting promoted. And I did plant a few seeds with them last week when I saw them. So, I mean, they've spent over $300 million acquiring tech companies in the last 2 years. They've got a lot of money on their balance sheet. They're going to keep operating independently. And then our stakeholders are getting more and more authority. So all of those point to, I think, interesting strategic options for us down the road. We're going to keep going on the momentum that we have.
From a social display volume perspective, so Q4 was obviously a great quarter for us. That represented over 500 campaigns and about 150 million impressions. And that was significant growth month over month over month. So the trajectory in Q4 was fantastic. From a talent investment perspective, we are looking to invest in the business pretty significantly to support that growth and make sure that we can see results faster. There are a couple of key roles that we're hiring for. So campaign support, both in New York and London, so that we have additional resources to help free up some sellers and TAMs from our strategic work. Looking to bring on a GM of the US market to lead the sales efforts here, as well as a VP of product strategy, especially as we delve deeper into the agency side. We want to make sure we have the right skill set in-house. Carlo and I think of the business as the go-to-market side and then the product engineering side. So on the go-to-market side, the leadership team is now comprised of the leads from each of the key areas. So marketing, the 3 regions represented from sales, US, APAC, and EMEA, revenue ops, and really services, as well as the technical team. So that top row here is now the leadership team in the go-to-market side. Carlo and I are trying to support Kunal by taking some of the direct reports off of his plate and make sure that we're more streamlined. He's freed up to be our visionary in market, and we're leading the teams from our side.
Hey, Laurie, can I ask you a question? Can we go back one slide?
Mm-hmm.
Is there, as you think about the, I guess, 2-part questions. So one is, obviously there's different jobs to be done at the different parts of the funnel. So it's to get from the 87, like, are you getting more in the top of the funnel? Are you moving them more aggressively to go live? Are you focused on moving live to active? I know that you mentioned there's kind of tier 1 and tier 2, but given the team is still relatively small, where is the focus there, or is it kind of spread out across all those activities?
I think the focus is primarily in growing that live to active. So we've been, successful getting people signed. That's not necessarily the challenge, but keeping the momentum to get them not just live, but seeing volume. We really need volume and scale. And that's what has to change in this quarter to feel like we've had success is, we need more partners running more campaigns rather than just hitting a live mark. So being able to look at some of these priority partners and really drive scale there is the focus for sure.
And is that, I guess my follow-up question, is that just to throw bodies at the problem, like direct and prioritize the people that you have towards making that happen? Or is part of that things that are being built into the product or ways that we're thinking about, like automating, how, or removing friction from getting it to do it? Like, how much control do we have over doing that versus it's really external, meaning like we can do the best job we can in getting Gannett fired up, but at the end of the day, their sales reps need to go sell a bunch of agencies who need to sell clients to be able to do this stuff. And that's just going to be a lot of hand-to-hand combat.
I think it's both, frankly. Like on the go-to-market side, reducing friction and providing clarity around what partners can expect, like as the product continues to evolve, is definitely priority. There's always an element that partners need to go and sell, and we can't do that for them. But we're looking to be able, on the go-to-market side, to provide them with more insights, more success studies, more verticalized materials that can help them get in market more specifically, more quickly. And then at the same time, on the product side, Carlo and his team are working on enhancements to the existing tools we have to take away some of that friction. So they sort of work hand in hand. I guess if you think of it as a three-pronged stool, like there is the piece that we can't control, and we know we can't control that, but then we can make the product more seamless, and we can make the way that we arm our partners with materials more specific so that they can kind of get to that success more quickly.
Great. Thank you.
I mean, James B., you and I chatted a bit about this as well in London 2 weeks ago. Be curious for you to share your perspective with the group in terms of focus and scale.
Well, yeah, we had a good chat. It's always a balance, right, Kunal? I guess is what we spoke about, and I guess there's. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a plan, and I guess you're much closer to the business than the rest of us, I guess, on the call. So, and it's great, frankly. I should have said earlier, to see two key execs stepping up and taking on much of the operation of the business. I think that's good, Kunal, that you're freed up to do other things. But I guess I don't want to go back through what we discussed unless would that be helpful, Kunal?
Sure.
Maybe what was your takeaway from that conversation? And
well, I think the seed that you planted with me was kind of how do we get this to thousands of campaigns versus hundreds of campaigns. And then for us to inspire the team to be thinking that way, so serious volume. I mean, 2 board calls ago, I think I was bragging that we had seen 30 campaigns run, and now it's like 500 plus campaigns in the last few months. But we need to get this to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 campaigns. Given the
your ambition is 12x the business this year, right? In terms of impressions.
Yeah.
That was the first slide, wasn't it? To $1 billion.
Yeah.
So it's great. You got a 10x plan. It's a 12x plan. Fantastic. So I think scale matters here, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Kunal, is there a tipping point? Like, do you see once you mentioned you need to wait to 5 campaigns to consider them active on your side?
Yeah.
I assume that like all campaigns are not created equal. Like, have you found that when X, Y, and Z are true at publishers across the board, typically you've tipped them at that point, and there's like momentum where you don't need to spend the same amount of time to get the next X number of campaigns? Have you been able to lock in on like what those jobs are to be done? Like, we need to check these 3 boxes, and then we know pretty reliably that they're going to start to do more of the work for us because we've already got one big, like as an example, we've already landed one big campaign with a premier advertiser. We have, accomplished X and Y, whatever those things are. Like, do you have a sense? Are you seeing enough yet to lock in on how repeatable those things are?
So we have. So if you look at like who the breakout partners have been, we call them super partners, which is not listed here, but they're running serious volume, so they're making serious money. So are we. Singapore Press, De Pers Group in Netherlands, Media24 in South Africa, Berta in Germany, and Think Digital in Eastern Europe. They've all like really taken ownership and are scaling it nicely, and they have a lot of confidence in themselves to make this really big. The characteristics of all those 5 companies is none of them are in the core markets that we serve, and in the markets that they're in, like they are the number 1 or number 2 company, and they just dominate that market. So they've got that sales team strength and that muscle to just say like, we're going to make this happen, and they make it happen. Whereas in the UK, Australia, Canada, US, the market is a lot more crowded and fragmented. And even a big company like NBC or Gannett haven't like really lit up with this. So I think we figured out the playbook in the tier 2 ad markets. I don't think we figured out the playbook in the tier 1 ad markets.
It also feels like the way you describe that, it's like that to me is more of like a segmentation exercise. Like, who are you going after? And you figured out now that there's a profile, so that when you're targeting new publishers, that might be the profile to go after. I guess what I'm asking is more, are you finding there are things within your control on kind of as you're servicing the account? If I'm a person on your team whose job it is to get Gannett to the next level, and maybe Gannett's the wrong one because you've just popped them, but like NBC, do I know the 3 things I need to do that will set them off on a path where their team can start to generate the next momentum as opposed to us?
I think we know some of it. I'm going to skip ahead to this one slide here, which talks about really publisher sales team enablement. And then to Steve, your question on the right-hand side, these are kind of the growth levers. Some of them are product, some of them are services, and some of them are pricing. Those are the kind of the growth levers we see to growing this part of the business. And then within like the sales enablement piece, there's a project happening right now to like look at what's worked and what's not worked and then refine it. Programmatic workflow is a product thing, which we think will make a big difference in the US market, which has moved a lot of those budgets to programmatic that we currently don't get access to. There are still a lot more US publishers we're not working with, some of the big guys. We're going to increase pricing across the board. And then our newer formats are also going to be charged. They're going to be able to charge more for those. So that'll increase the CPM value. Yeah, but there are some clear scale challenges with the current model of using the publisher sales teams that are more a reflection of the market dynamics of which budgets they get access to and the size and effectiveness of the sales team versus our specific product.
Gotcha. Okay. One thought just to leave you with, and maybe Lori, this is for you since it sounds like you're closer to this now. It'd be interesting to just understand if there's a clear job to be done for the people on your team when they are on these publishers so that they know exactly what they have to do. Like if you do nothing else in the first 30 days, make sure you get this done this way because that'll set us on the path. And if there's anything in the history of success that you've seen where there's something repeatable there, I just think that's helpful to scale because otherwise you're somewhat reactive to what you're hearing from the publishers and they don't know how to be successful with you, would be my guess. So they might send you spinning in a bunch of different directions. If you've identified, we just know that we're not going to be successful unless we can do X, Y, and Z, like it'd be great to give people those explicit jobs and that's kind of how they're compensated and that's how they're measured.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's keep moving and we'll jump into product. I'll let Carlo talk through this.
Great. So this slide kind of breaks it down by our 3 main product lines. Ad solutions, which is kind of all the kind of growth and most of the focus. And then our branded content distribution and branded content measurement, which you guys are familiar with, are kind of traditional product lines. So these are kind of the top priorities right now for Q1 and 2 within each of these streams. So ad solutions, first bullet here is kind of de-risking the kind of dependency we have on the social networks, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or what have you, and kind of bringing in as much of that into our control and product-wise, so no dependency on APIs, that sort of thing, to make sure that we can't be kind of turned off at any moment. And then the other part is ad format innovation. The big value prop to this whole sort of solution is the engagement that's being delivered by kind of a superior format. So innovation there and kind of devising new formats and kind of leading that sort of creative activity on behalf of the market is sort of something that we're doing. The second piece is programmatic deals and third-party verification. These are 2 kind of pieces we identified as key for kind of key barriers to scaling, especially for the non-key markets that Kunal just mentioned. The programmatic deal stuff, there's basically, Kunal's slides explain it a little more, but we have a direct model. Everyone understands it and executes it. However, the more sophisticated, especially in the US and more developed markets that a publisher is, the more they don't use a traditional manual workflow, the more they use programmatic tools, even if the deal itself isn't like an auction or a programmatic auction. So we're just kind of making sure that we're compatible there. And then the third-party verification
Carlo, you cut out for us.
Yeah, I've lost him on my end. He's frozen.
Component that we need to be compatible with. So there's these three vendors that we are just aiming to be compatible out of the box. And then publisher sales team enablement. We've had a lot of momentum here with kind of bringing this agenda into the product as a first class sort of feature. So having kind of tools and other kind of features that basically are geared towards a salesperson persona at the publisher and help them get the information they need, and most importantly, get a preview creative in their hands very easily so they can demonstrate it to a client. So we found that, you know, using this approach kind of cuts out sometimes weeks of back and forth of emails and decks and PowerPoints to explain it, and rather than explain and try to kind of highlight the features in a kind of traditional product way, just having a live demo just cuts it all down, and you don't even really have to have a long discussion at that point. So that's the key thing. I'll show you a very quick demo in a minute of kind of one of those tools. For branded content distribution, our main agenda here is to kind of take some of these learnings. Like, we've really innovated and tackled some of the pain points of our solution within the Ad Solutions banner. So we want to take those learnings and apply them to our traditional business, the kind of like branded content, native promotions, especially with simplifying the process, simplifying the setup, removing some of the kind of more complex parts and making them more automated, and also the go-to-market sales team enablement stuff. So we think all those things can be brought into the BCD product line, and then we will want to plan a sort of like a relaunch, if you will, this year, especially to partners that have signed up with us for Ad Solutions and social, but have not adopted our BCD or any other kind of part of our platform. And then for branded content measurement, this one is, if you look more into the details of the financials, there's 88% of the revenue here comes from the top 3 customers and 68% from the top single customer, which is Gannett. And we have just a tech partner risk here. We've had a lot of issues with maintenance and stability and performance of that platform. And, you know, the people that work with this day to day, you know, support issues are coming up all the time, every day, and it's taking a lot of like unfair amount of mind share and effort on the team, both on our team, their team, and kind of like the publishers. So we're looking to do a market revalidation and a product architecture revamp contingent on that revalidation, and see kind of like how to preserve this revenue and how to ideally grow it. But we don't think that the current kind of product platform that we kind of work on with Nudge, which is the partner, is sustainable in that sense. So these are the kind of the top product focus for Q1 and 2. Kunal, if you give me the control, I'll if you open the control, I'll do the preview tool demo, unless you want.
Carlo, just before you go there, there's a lot on that list, right? To what extent is it prioritized? I guess question 1, and I guess question 2. What's worrying you most? What's the toughest task to complete in the time, and to the quality that you and the team would expect?
Sure. The 3 streams are kind of listed in priority order. Ad Solutions is the top, and we want to de-risk that immediately. That's sort of like the very, very top priority for us. And then sales enablement to kind of push that growth agenda. So that's certainly the number 1 focus. For the other 2, BCD is an opportunistic thing. Like, we have kind of a pipeline ready to be introduced to our solutions, but we don't want to go to market in the same way that we have before, because we don't believe that will be scalable, and we'll get caught up in like a low margin sort of effort there. So we want to make sure that you know, we play the right card when we play it. So that would be kind of like the second priority. BCM is the third, just because of the limited deployment base that we have so far.
So I get it. I mean, it's great to look forward to. Can we expect at the end of the quarter a look back as to, green, amber, red, as to what was delivered, what came close, and what didn't? And I guess you use an agile approach, presumably, to what you're building and how you're working across the team. So there's a kind of constant learning and constant reevaluation, reprioritization, etc., through the quarter.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, these are rolled up bullets, right? There's tons of projects under each of them. So, and we rejig that very frequently, and we kind of adapt to any feedback or opportunities that we see. So, I mean, some of the ad solution stuff we're basically undertaking with the KPI we want to move is more campaigns, like that scale number, more campaigns and more publishers. So. Everything we do there, whether we do one project or 10 projects, we want to move that number. So that's how we kind of are evaluating success there. There's engineering level kind of velocity and completion and all that kind of stuff. So we track that as well.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Carlo, I think it's great. I guess I'd echo what James or maybe build on what James is saying. I think it'd be great as you go forward in these board meetings to actually have a product roadmap with. It seems like those are swim lanes with specific milestones that go throughout the year, I assume, and I'm not getting a total sense of exactly when those are going to be delivered and did the team effectively deliver them. Maybe just next board meeting or as you go forward. I think that's a good. Kind of standard approach to delivering to this group the product roadmap. So, yeah, just a suggestion.
Give more kind of granularity there for you. Yep. I will say on the kind of just at a high level, kind of the targets are sort of ad solutions is an immediate thing, and we ship as soon as possible on that front. Our growth plan through to Q4 to get to 2.5 million in revenue is based on assumptions of product completion of various projects. So that's kind of baked into that. For BCD, we were targeting kind of a late Q2 relaunch. So basically, it was the idea of time boxing the amount of changes we make to that time frame in order to kind of go to market by mid-year. With the relaunch. We've had some other kind of things that we deliberately pushed that timeline around, non-technical. So we've rejigged the services, our technical services team. We just made a hire yesterday for a new leader for that team, reporting to Lori. So that's something we really felt we could not push the gas on without filling that. Okay.
One thing, it's Steve. Yep. The other thing that would be, I think, as you go through the roadmap, would be kind of checking in on objectives relative to the things that you're building. Like if the goal is to be able to reduce the time it takes to do something by X days or hours, or if the goal is to be able to increase the throughput of something, it'd be good to understand like, how did it do? Sometimes we build these things under one assumption and then, they don't actually deliver, or something, far exceeds our expectations in terms of like how much work it's doing for us. It'd be interesting to kind of tie that back. And because I know that a lot of this stuff is built off the back of, we're doing this in service today, or this is causing us a delay. It'd be good to hold the team accountable to, did it deliver against the objective, not just did you ship it on time as well.
Yeah, I get it completely. I agree. The one thing we changed very recently was on the product road mapping process and like that product team. For each feature we build, we're making a what we call a brief document, and it's one page, and it simply describes what we're trying to accomplish. But we've added in KPIs that this project should move. Right, and they've got to basically be tied back to the growth agenda, like one of the top 3 that you saw at the beginning of this section of the deck. So, like it could be removed a few like a few orders of magnitude, but you know, they roll up into one of those is the idea. And we've also introduced sort of like rollout, more tactical KPIs. So we call it a beta phase. So basically it's, you know, we build something and then the point is to, you know, get it out there and test it, make sure that adoption is there and make sure that we're moving that KPI. But frankly, we're still a little immature in that sort of like metric driven approach. So working on that.
Right.
Okay, let's do a quick demo, Carlo, of the preview tool. I can touch on stories in the next section.
Yeah. So this is sort of an example. A sales team is given this tool. There's a simple password that they enter, and they just get a very sort of basic screen. What we ask them to do is say, okay, go find a social post for one of your clients, and you can kind of get an instant preview. So, for example, Steve, I took a look, and you know, we can just hop onto Integrate AI's Twitter, right? They've got to pick the post, and you know, at this stage, it's like, you know, it's a sales thing, so they can just almost pick anything. So I'll just copy the tweet link, and I'll paste it into the tool. What it's going to do is go and scrape that and going to generate this preview on the right. So this is just a typical kind of story page, and you kind of get the ad preview as it would likely appear on the publisher site if the campaign were live. So this is just a very simple example, and like this tool has actually been adopted widely. People are using it in lieu of a whole PowerPoint deck. You know, they get this link. It just opens this page. They can send this straight to their client. It just cuts through a lot of noise that we saw delaying a deal getting done.
So how is this available on the website? I mean, I should have checked, I guess, but how widely available is this tool? Is it in the hands of the salespeople? Is it on the website?
Yeah, it's in the hands of the salespeople. We don't put it on the public website, but it's on every client's radar. This is kind of like the first thing Lori and team do with the sales teams is show them this tool, train them on it. We even lead group sessions where like, hey, everybody, like pick your top 3 clients. Let's go find their Twitter post and let's dump it in here and like let's see what it looks like. And we tailor the kind of preview tool for the tier 1 guys to their actual website versus just a boilerplate website. So it really kind of expedites both the training process for us and also their sales process.
Yeah, I love this. I think this is the kind of like product-led growth concept that Kunal, you and I talked about, and it's hard to apply some of those concepts very easily to your business, but this is a really obvious thing to do. I would encourage you to think about ways to make it more scalable. For example, maybe there's an opportunity now to have a young sales development representative do more scaled work to try to get the word into, you know, and support your sales team, as an example. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but there's ways to, I think, really get the word out using this type of tool and type of process you're describing. So I would encourage you to think really creatively, or maybe you could gate it and have people in a self-serve way experience it. But anything that's going to get you more velocity of sale and an easier sale and start to address the realities of how people want to consume and learn, which is more and more on their own and less through a salesperson. So those are just my thoughts and observations, but I really love that.
Yeah, there is a relationship between usage of the tool and campaigns being run. We see that.
Great. So the only thing left is this. This is kind of the product side equivalent of the slide you saw from Lori. These names will probably be familiar to you guys, but we've sort of delineated all the product and engineering operations into these 7 different people, and one of the dev leads there, that's a new development. So we're kind of looking to, as the engineering team grows, we're going to split it into 2, and then maybe if it's warranted, split it into 3. and hire kind of tech leads that can execute we can give them more focus on a particular part of the roadmap or stream, like a different product line, that sort of thing. So we're currently recruiting and looking to fill that position. And then the VP product strategy role is a key role that we're also looking to fill. And the intention here is like picking up somebody that has a good kind of industry background in ad tech, ideally, and kind of can navigate the programmatic and agency waters, with Kunal a little more. This is something that we've spent a lot of time in recently, and frankly, we're new to this side of the business, and there's a lot of little nuances to work out. So this is that's part of the justification and the thinking behind that role.
Yeah, so thanks, Carl. I'll just add on. So there's two key leadership roles that we're going to start recruiting for. One is the GM in the US, which is like a VP of sales role, somebody to tag team with Laurie and I, focus on the US market as a hunter, somebody who's got agency side experience, probably comes from the ad tech ecosystem. And the second role is a VP of product strategy to tag team with Carlo and I, and both roles in New York, both roles ideally from the industry on the team. So those are the two key roles, and there's a lot of other roles as well we're hiring for.
So obviously, take a look at my LinkedIn, and I can definitely try to find some folks in New York to help out there. That's something very discreet I can help with, hopefully.
Great.
And Kunal, for you, so you'll then have, is it 3 direct reports through this process, which will really free up your time and energy for more client-side work and kind of strategy and development, kind of product development? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, it really is two reports in the sense of Carlo and Laurie.
Yeah.
And then, with Andrew and I, we're never really sure who's working for who.
Okay.
But yeah, Andrew, Laurie, and Carlo as the executive team. And then Laurie will have a leadership team of about 6 people, Carlo a leadership team of about 7 people.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep moving. So Andrew, I'll let you talk briefly through this year.
Yeah, so I'll keep the comments very similar to what you saw for the fiscal 2018. Again, just talking about revenue, we're looking for just shy of 9 million this year. I believe that is a very realistic, but probably I'm hoping, and we're aiming for on the conservative side. No pressure, Laurie. But I think what we're trying to do is get to that 3 million goal by Q4. Right now, the plans are suggesting 2.5 for Q4. So we're working up a bottoms-up model, which we've done for Q1 and Q2 in pretty good detail. And we're doing that for the balance of the year as well as we progress. So I feel very comfortable with how we're going to get there by customer. And from a profit perspective, right now the forecast is seeing us burn a little bit of money in fiscal 2019. However, as we do a little bit better, we will continue to make the investments. Many of the investments that we're making right now are coming at the expense of reducing some of our cost that we had assigned to Sigma and some other team costs that we had in place. So it's not net. It's not that much of an increase, but there is certainly more of a commitment around the team. And then from a cash perspective, we do expect to be at about 1.6. So we will be burning about $500,000 next year. So that we're monitoring very closely, as you can expect. So.
Any questions for Andrew or on fiscal 2019? Okay. Let's now move into product vision and strategy. There's 2 parts to this. I'm going to kind of blow through the pitch part. Everybody knows this, but it'll just be a very quick refresher. And then we're going to focus on really phase 2, which is what does the buy side strategy look like, and a lot of questions here on the business model. So total state of the market, We published a white paper that's been really well received. It's shrinking the share of the market that publishers have access to, 11%. This is a key kind of insight. On the agency side, their premium budgets, which is what publishers access, is shrinking. Programmatic budgets are growing very quickly, and social is also growing very quickly. So the entire strategy for us to scale has to be centered, I believe, around building products that allow publishers to get access to different budgets on the buy side than what they get access to now. Based on feedback from the last board conversation, I've personally gone and spent time with agencies in different markets, a lot in the US and Canada where we have connections. And I've kind of slowed down a couple of agency conversations because they like the vision, and I'm seeing the same trends now and hearing the same data points of how agencies think of publishers versus how they think of social and programmatic. So this is informing our strategy. And then in terms of our vision, there's 3 elements to this: beautiful creatives, trusted distribution, and easy to execute. So the engagement rate we see is 1% on our formats, which is amazing. 1 to 2% is what people see in social. So we're in the ballpark. We completely crush display ads. We've got this innovation roadmap to go beyond social posts. Stories as a format is something we're pretty excited about. Facebook's earnings call last week, I counted, they used the word stories 83 times. They used the words privacy, security, and safety combined 47 times. So like Facebook has a very, very clear narrative around stories. I'm going to show you a quick prototype that our team's been working on for what a stories format, so like an Instagram stories, etc., might look like on a publisher's site. So here's like a scroll to reveal type unit, borrowing some of the visual elements from Instagram, but this is on a publisher's site. The user would tap into it and then get a full screen experience where they can engage with the content pretty much the exact same way they do in social, but they're in a publisher site. Like always, we're reusing the same assets from social. And here's another example.
Good now?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Steve. Stories is awesome, man. I'm really glad you guys got to this. This is like, I think you're hitting the right part of the market now where the money is moving aggressively with innovation. Like, and a lot of the work that's going to have to happen in the industry, Facebook is going to do for you. Like they're out there telling agencies, go to stories, go to stories, go to stories. You know what I mean? And you could just kind of like have your hands out with this format and like take the money.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if you look at these formats, like they're beautiful, which means publishers will be able to charge like a lot of money for it, which means we'll be able to charge publishers a lot of money for it. So this moves up the value chain, and I think our pricing will be a lot higher. Our unit economics will be a lot higher as well. So that gets me excited for revenue growth. So that's the vision on stories, and then video and native is just more of a placeholder. We don't have a product strategy yet, but it's just to show our vision extends beyond what people have seen, which they like. So we're approaching 100 publishers, like the who's who. Everybody knows this. Really like proud of the team. Like this has all happened in the last kind of 120 days. So it's pretty unbelievable how fast we've been able to sign everybody up. This is a cool visual. I don't know if we've shown this to you before. On the left is a user reading an article, and we see 9 seconds of attention time. And on the right is a social feed where advertisers see 1.7 seconds of attention. In the agency conversations I've had just in the last 3 weeks, they've been sharing with us that they are seeing less than 1 second of attention time in Facebook and Instagram. And like nobody looks at ads in social feeds is what the agencies are saying to us. So they've really caught on to this. I don't know, Steve, you highlighted this for us as well last year. I think there's more.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, I think this visual is actually great. You might want to put the exact same ad on both sides. I'm not sure if it's there, and it's just going so fast that I actually can't see it. But it really hits home nicely. Like this is a good one to put on the website too. Even like this is a striking kind of visual. I like it.
Steve, I'll just chime in. Like, this is something that there's an idea we have right now, which is like this. They can download this as a GIF from that tool that I showed you, right? With the post that they, that they selected. So like stuff like that is sort of like what we're thinking about on that tool front.
Yeah, the James.
These are great. Yeah.
I say James Bilford shared with us the stat, and James, I've been using that now in every single meeting. So an average, we saw the research, which James helped us surface, that the average user scrolls the height of the Empire State Building every day in social. And when I've been using that narrative with agencies and even publishers, that kind of sticks. It's like, yeah, we scroll really quickly, which it's obviously very hard to build a brand if you're in that environment. Okay, so that's on the distribution. So we have beautiful creatives, and that the formats will keep evolving. That's part one. Part two is distribution on trusted sites where people will actually see your ads. And then part three is it's painless to execute. We use your existing assets. And that means you don't have to pay anybody to create new assets. You don't have to get new approvals, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the pitch. These are just some of the brands that have run campaigns in the last few months. So this logo wall has been updated since the last board meeting, and every single ad vertical is adopting it. And we've actually gone deeper based on the feedback from the last call on building the case studies in a public way, in the sense that we have permission to talk about it publicly. So we've got about eight requests for case studies out. One of them has been completed already. This is the first one. So Norwegian Cruise Line, Birda, we had Ipsos do the brand research on the creatives they used, and they saw very strong brand lift. And then this was done as a proper case study, so the agency and the client have approved this, so we could use all these results publicly. And there's 7 more that we've got teed up that are going through the process of getting the approvals right now.
Hey, Kunal.
Yeah.
Any thought when you get these results are phenomenal, and I love the fact that you got all the permissions to use it. Any thought about putting a little bit of money into making this like a video case study where you can actually have the agency and the client talking directly to your prospects as opposed to you interpreting it through like a static format like this?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we've got the storylines, we've got the data, we've got the permission, so it now becomes a marketing exercise. The other thing I do want to highlight is we're seeing the same advertisers show up again and again. Like I was speaking with Time Out yesterday, we talked about lost my screen share.
You're still sharing.
Okay. Like Time Out shared with us yesterday, they just got another campaign from the Body Shop. So we're hearing all these anecdotes where the advertisers run a campaign and then they're running it again and again. So that's validation that they're liking something about it, and we're trying to dig in to figure out what specific is the reason that they're buying again. Okay. Any other questions around the pitch? So let's get into the go-to-market strategy. We should have seen this, right? Okay. So this is the vision of how we're thinking of the market in terms of like long-term, and this is now where we get into the trusted web vision and how does that compete with the social web and the open web. So the social web, i.e. Facebook, the real challenge that they have is nobody looks at ads. So that's where we're going to compete. In terms of the open web, which is Google and ad exchanges, they all use standardized, commoditized ad formats. Nobody clicks on banner ads. That's where we'll compete, and the brand safety is an all-time low. So then the strategy is to compete on formats that deliver engagement and attention, which we've proven, to enable workflows that enable self-serve and audience data for targeting, which we haven't yet enabled. That's where programmatic comes in. And then the reach and scale, we haven't enabled that yet, and that's where publishers work together and the transparency and safety we have. That's the vision of what we're working towards. And then in terms of how we get there, actually before I get into how we get there, any questions or comments on this vision? Now, this is the key part. Like this is what we're aiming towards. And even Justin, we've talked in the past about this idea of vision lock. This is what we've been doing to get the strategic publishers to kind of see the world in this way and then agree at these are the boxes they need to check, and we've got a plan to help them check them.
Kunal, I think you and I have spoken about this chart. I'm always skeptical when I see these sort of charts, and it's all green.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's just maybe it's a more stylistic comment than anything else.
Yeah. Okay. So getting into now how we get here. We've talked about the current go-to-market strategy, which is really using publisher sales teams. We've hit some good validation and revenue, and we're going to keep growing this. I think in the next 6 months, we could probably grow it 150%. But I think we're going to ultimately hit a ceiling with this go-to-market strategy, knowing that the publisher sales teams have a lot of things to sell. They only get access to certain size budgets, and they individually only have certain scale. So I kind of think of this current phase that we're in as really a way to prove and get our formats certified and get everybody comfortable with these big, beautiful ads running on their sites and get lots of case studies and clients using it. So that's what's happening today. This next strategy, call it Plan B, or which is proposed, is to now move into an agency self-serve solution that does not depend on the publisher sales teams. This gets a little technical, and the focus here would be to do this in the tier 1 markets where we have operations. So that's US, UK, Australia, and Canada, those 4 markets. We would go to the publishers and then ask them each to create a private marketplace using their existing programmatic tools, so there's no friction there. We would take on the responsibility to go educate agencies to say, here's the format, and then here are all the publishers that support it. The agencies would get a login to our system purely for the generation of the creative tags, and then they would use their existing buying tools, and then they can buy in a one-to-many way using their existing buying tools. So lots of benefits for the agency, like bigger budgets, self-serve, targeting, etc. And then lots of benefits for the publisher. They don't have to do anything. We're now taking the responsibility to bring demand to the table, and there's no opportunity cost or tech risk. In terms of our business model, which is what I'm thinking through a lot these days, is charging the publishers a rev share, because we wouldn't touch the money. The money would flow from the advertiser to the agency to the DSP to the SSP to the publisher, and then the publisher would pay us a pretty decent rev share. I'm thinking 30%. That's what I'm testing. And then additionally, there could be an opportunity where we still charge the agency a CPM serving fee for access to our creative tool, which rich media companies like Celtra also do. So I've shared a lot. I'll open it up for any questions or comments on this.
I got to say, I think if you can get directly to the agencies that we've been talking, it's going to be incredibly important. So I think some flavor of this is really the right way to go. I guess I have 2 questions that are kind of related to this, but also maybe go back a bit in the presentation today. One is there a client, I guess I'm thinking Gannett, that is a top to bottom shining example of this completely working perfectly in market? I'll spare Steve from having to ask this question again. Yeah. But is that do you have that one complete end-to-end success story?
We have that, but not in the English markets. So in the tier 2 ad markets, so Singapore Press, Deparis Group, Media24, okay. Probably those 3, where it's significant revenue. They're very happy. They're giving us lots of product feature ideas. We're going to be doing like a client event in Singapore in a few weeks. So they're bringing all their advertisers, like 60 people together, and I'll be on stage. We're going to launch the product officially, even though they've already run 100 campaigns. We're doing the same thing in South Africa. They're doing 2 client events. They've run over 100 campaigns now, but they'll be the official launch events. And then DePers Group, they've also launched over 100 campaigns. So these 3 publishers have each crossed 100 campaigns, which is very impressive.
Okay.
And they want
Well, that's great. I guess, you know, still need New York and ideally London. But okay. Second question is how much of a, if you were just to, you know, red, yellow, green it for me, how much of a product moat do you think you now have? Like, where are you at? How strong a moat do you have competitively on the product side?
Product alone, I would say is still yellow. It's our go-to-market model, our integration model, our business model. If you combine that together, it becomes a green. And then this agency piece, I think, really creates a moat. If we have relationships with agencies who are buying on the publishers with our formats, that now kind of locks in the publishers to supporting our formats.
Right, and I assume obviously the strategic imperative of supporting someone like you as opposed to letting, I don't know, one of the other big 4 or 5 take it. So that's another angle. Yeah, I mean, I guess I ask this question because I feel like those need to be solidly, you know, yellow heading toward green.
Yeah.
To make this a reality. And I think the technical part of it, and the reason I got going on this is 30% is, you know, it's the ultimate premium. I mean, all the DSPs and exchanges, they all start off at that and they end up at, you know, 10 or 8 or 6. So you just, in order to command that and actually hold that line, even over 15, 20, I mean, Steve may have better, or James may have even better experience here that's more recent than mine. But so I think I would be, you'd want the answers to the questions I asked to be affirmatively green.
Yes.
With a lot of demand to think about 30% really. But I do like the idea of the rich media. I think the creative is someplace where people will pay, but it's certainly not as scalable. So anyway, I think this is, you know, makes a lot of sense. It fits into the way the market works. You're adding another, you know, layer of fee to the publishers, which is, I don't know, it's unavoidable. And I can't think of a better model for this than doing that. And they understand that model, and you're giving them tremendous value, ostensibly. So I would just focus on those yellow to green aspects that like you're doing. And then I would be really curious to understand exactly how you really launch this in market. But those are just some of my thoughts.
Great. Thanks, James. Yeah, and kind of it's really us saying we want to move towards having relationships with agencies. Like, this is one specific execution of that, but that's the bigger point that we're putting on the table, is to start to say, like, have agency relationships, which we've never had in our history.
Hey, Kunal, is it worth? I guess the only thought I have for you strategically on this one. And I might be James might have preempted me a little bit. I might be, back to my old kind of squeaky wheel self on this one. But is there an MVP way of testing this with one agency such that you can do the learning off the back of like a real in market, as opposed to building off the back of a bunch of conversations with a bunch of different agencies and trying to like nail the market? Is it possible to go and have an agency like co-invest in this with you and pick a big client and have them funded and really learn off the back of like a real example, as opposed to having to make a decision now whether this is a go-to-market or not? Like, can there be a tiger team on it and you figure it out, or is the lift from a technical standpoint so heavy on this one that there's no MVP concept here?
No, there absolutely is. So we're going down that path already. So that's definitely the strategy. And this product strategy actually involves pretty minimal investment from us from a product standpoint. That's why we're very excited about it, because we think we could test it, very quickly in market. So we've got a couple of pilots that we're working on. We're not necessarily asking the advertiser to pay Polar, but we're asking the agency to run campaigns on our publishers through this new setup, which fits into their pieces. So there's an agency in Germany that Berta has connected us to, which is Publicis, and they've been helping inform this. We've got a small agency in New York that we're working directly with the president, and he likes it and he gets it, and he works with Heineken as his biggest client, so he's ready to take this to them. And then we're talking to UM, in both Canada and the US, on specific brand teams that we've already given them slides that they've taken to the client to get them to say yes to run some pilot campaigns. So we've got probably a half a dozen pilots that we're working towards.
Okay. Food for thought on this one. I think there's an opportunity to go to one, go to the top of the house at an agency and pick one and go deep with them, as opposed to scattering it across 6 to 10. You can make the ultimate call on this one. The MO here tends to be to go to more. I would just say less, in my experience, when you're trying to nail something like this. It's, you want to minimize the execution risk and you want to get a strong signal back. Mm-hmm. I think you'd get more support if you went to the top of the house versus going to a particular account team. Even if that top of the house sends you to the most progressive account team, you don't want to be reactive on account teams. You just never know what you're getting.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. So to recap, kind of current go-to-market is via publisher sales teams. The second stream is to explore going directly to agencies in the tier 1 markets and proving this and validating this. Not a huge amount of product investment. We're going to leverage existing tools. The third go-to-market strategy applies to the tier 2 markets, and this has been bubbled up by the publishers. So I'll talk about Singapore and South Africa specifically. So they both independently came up with this concept and brought it to us. But in those markets, in the tier 2 ad markets, we work with the largest publishers in those countries. And their idea was to build a publisher alliance for our formats that they go sell to the agencies. And then what that does in terms of the value proposition is it groups together all the publisher inventory, so you have scale, you have trust because it's only quality publishers, and then you've got formats that are differentiated. So it's a different execution of that original vision that we talked through of checking all those boxes. So then the big publisher would be the sales partner. They might take, say, 20%. Polar might take 20% of the tech fee, and then whoever provided the inventory, it could be other publishers in that market, it could be international publishers in the local traffic, etc., would take 60%. So this is starting to unfold into a pretty exciting strategy, mainly because these partners we're working with have so much momentum and strength in terms of the volume they've been able to drive. So if we look at kind of the breadth of partnerships we have in tier 2 ad markets, it's starting to get pretty large. Probably about 10 markets where we could execute this strategy. And the thought is, let's prove it first in Singapore and South Africa, 2 of our strongest partners. And then if this works, then expand it into other markets. Any questions or thoughts on this strategy?
Kunal, I know you and I, again, discussed this recently. To me, it's a question of resources and prioritization. The first 2 parts of the go-to-market are clearly the most critical, and getting those right with a small team in the space of, I guess, we're talking the next 12 months largely, are we?
Yeah.
Feels like a huge amount of work, and a lot of things need to go right. I guess just question whether it's really worth us also spending so much time and energy on these smaller markets and, less important clients typically on a kind of, global industry basis. If we win in Portugal and Eastern Europe, but don't win in US, UK, not great. Whereas if we don't get to Eastern Europe or Canada or Germany or UK SMEs until 2020, that's probably fine. So just a thought.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Any other feedback on this?
Just top on, I thought that was really good feedback. Like, I think the one like non-goals for you guys this year. What good opportunities are you staring down and saying no to in order to double down on the great opportunities that you've got ahead of you? Because my worry always with this particular management team is just that there's always a lot of great ideas. I'm worried that the ones that you don't feed all of them in the way that they need to be fed in order to see them all the way through, and you're going to get stuck going 80% of the way with all three of these, and none of them are going to get to 100%, and unfortunately you don't get the score until you get 100% on some of these. And so I think there's an opportunity to be much more ruthless in your prioritization, and that way you'll avoid the reaction to the market, because some of this, you got to decide, do you have enough information to make the call? If you have enough information, then I would suggest make the call and be ruthless. If you're still looking for more information and that's why you can't make the call, what information exactly do you need from the market, and how can you go get it in the simplest, fastest way to be able to make the decision? That's what I would encourage you to focus on at this point, because I think fewer bigger bets is likely a good strategy for 2019 if you're trying to get up to whatever the mark is, that $10 million mark, or whatever the big stretch is for this year. I think it's probably going to come off the back of making a couple of great bets as opposed to letting 1,000 flowers bloom.
Yeah, and just to build on that just quickly, great strategy often is, the best strategies are deciding what you don't do alongside what you do. And there's always lots of good ideas, but actually, deciding, to hold on some topics where you're excited by them, but just not sure, you execute effectively, or the impact won't be as big as some of the other kind of larger plays would be. And getting the bigger plays at least 50% right is going to be more valuable than getting the smaller plays maybe 100% right.
Which one of these guys do you think, if you were to say you wanted to double or triple Q4 this year, get to 4, 5, 6 million?
Yeah.
Which one of these gets you there?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know offhand. I've got ideas. My initial thought is multiple publishers are going to have to contribute to that, because each on their own has a ceiling.
Yeah, I was thinking. B. If you get B working, even if it's in South Africa and Singapore, and you bring that back to Gannett, and now it's working in the U.S. I'm sorry, was it B? What? Wait, I might have had it wrong. It was the consortium where it was their idea. Which proposal was that? You had some of the secondary publisher markets saying, "Hey, we're going to form a consortium." And okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to that, just because while I agree with everything that Steve and James just said, I get worried about agencies. It's so finicky. It's so hard to control them. Part of me would, I guess I would go with what's really in front of you, and you need to have happen for that 4-6 million, which is this publisher consortium, an organization of high quality premium publishers breaking that US. That's going to be the thing that scales. It gives you the insulation on the product, et cetera. But for my money, I would still look for an individual agency, front to back, top down, into the right progressive account team, and maybe make that your Tiger team in trial. But that's my reaction to what I'm seeing here on go-to-market is you've got the proposal C here that you would need regardless to get to 4, 6, 8 million in Q4, right? So build on it, make it work. It seems like it's a really efficient go-to-market, especially in those secondary markets. You're close in the U.S. with maybe Gannett and a couple others, and when they see it working in those other countries, maybe you can get them over the hump, especially with the partnership. And then have a Tiger team that's very constrained, that doesn't take too many resources, that is 110% on that agency side, or maybe hire a gunslinger in New York, which I've been talking to you about, and somebody who can walk you into those locations and those people, so that you can get that. Because I don't know that there's a mutually exclusive angle here. If you were unconstrained financially and you had could raise a bunch more money, then you probably would go 100%, 10% on both of these. So that's my reaction to all this. I don't normally have such strong opinions, but in this case, I think I do.
Okay. Thank you, James. Yeah, and I mean, the product it's the same product. This is really a go-to-market kind of investment decision versus a product. It's the same programmatic pipes and PMP setup and kind of both strategies. It's the exact same product. So we're committed to build out the plan to make the product real, and it's more like who sells it to the buyers and how do we sell it. Just for completeness, there's a couple of other kind of things on the backlog that I've been also testing. So there's publisher alliances. The two notable ones are the Ozone in the UK and TrustX in the US. I've spoken to both of them the last week. They're probably just going to take it on. They really like it. They're likely just going to be a group publisher in our eyes. So that's what we do today, option A. The demand side platforms. So we've started talking with MediaMath, which is like the number 2 or number 3 player. And they've planted the seed saying like the DSPs could actually be your channel because they have a incentive to sell higher priced advertising because they get paid a percentage of what flows through their pipes. And then kind of on the backlog is, which some people have asked us about, is an actual self-serve platform more targeted towards non-agencies where people can soup to nuts, buy the advertising inside the interface. Yeah. So these are other.
I would be very careful getting trapped behind a DSP. I don't know, Steve or James, what you think, but I think they're going to tempt you. To me, they feel a little bit. I think you are in a position to have the very top relationships with the publishers and could have the same situation with the agencies. Trapping yourself behind a DSP or an SSP seems counterproductive given where you sit. So just proceed with caution is what I think on that front. I mean, James or Steve, am I off there?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think you want it's a messy middle right now, and finding yourself getting wed to somebody who's already on shaky ground is just, it's desperate people do desperate things. I wouldn't be partnered with folks that are kind of headed underwater. They might grab you and pull you down with them.
Okay. Thank you.
And none of these strikes me as again, getting the focus is so important. So trying to explore all these simultaneously feels really, I would keep them on the backlog unless there's some really compelling reason to put them front and center. But you already have 3 that you really kind of need to choose among. I would trust your analysis and where you're at, and not let these creep into the focus I think you need this year.
Yep, I agreed fully. Yeah, so I'd say over the last month, this is where a lot of my focus has been, is kind of exploring all these different paths to scale this, and this is kind of the analysis of what I've come back with. And just for completeness, there's 3 real risks to the strategy right now. Carla talked, so we use Facebook's API. They could arbitrarily turn it off within the next kind of month or so. We're going to remove our dependency on their API. It's not actually used to render the ads. It's just more to identify the creative. So it's a nice to have. It's not a must have. So we're going to remove that. And Twitter and Instagram is the same. We are the shiny object today. So the risk is we no longer are the shiny object. So that's where our strategy is to keep being the shiny object by having interesting formats like stories, but then also to open up other go-to-market channels. So we're not reliant purely on the publisher sales team. And the new entrants, formats will get commoditized. That happens in digital advertising. There's a lot of tech that we've been building that's not tied to the format. So that they're like making these formats work in the ad ecosystem is challenging, but we understand how to make that work. So that's going to give us some defensibility. And then also starting to play a bigger role in securing the demand is how we'll have defensibility against the format itself getting copied. So I just want to highlight those are three risks we're aware of, and we're actively and confident on our solutions to mitigate them. Okay, we're at time. Thank you everybody for the time and the feedback. I enjoyed this new flow and structure. Andrew's going to be playing a bigger role in helping prep and organize ourselves around the board meetings. And if you have other ideas and feedback on how to make the board meetings more valuable and more effective for all of us, then share feedback with Andrew and I. Don't be shy. So it's been a good 60 days. A lot of good stuff and changes. And in the next 60 days, my hope is we've hired another 10 people, that we've committed to where we're going to double down in terms of the go-to-market strategy, and that we've got some more case studies and wins and growth on the KPIs we've talked about. Thank you all for the time and the feedback, and I'm sure I'll talk to each of you soon.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. All right, great stuff, everybody. Congratulations, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.